Hey everyone, my name is Michelle and welcome to the Dilettante's Bookshelf. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I read in August and so far in September, and then I'm also going to be sharing with you my goal list for the things that I'd like to have read by the end of the month. Okay, so we're going to start off with everything that I have read in August in no particular order. I actually had to go back to my Goodreads to see what I had read. And it made me realize that while I do keep a paper list of all the books I read each year, that it might be fun to start adding them by month. So I have this little traveler's notebook that I keep with me everywhere. And so I have created a list in here of the books that I'm reading each month. And I think it'd be fun to have that as a resource, not only just for here for the channel, but also for myself to be able to kind of go back and look at all the books that I've read each month and to see which months maybe that I was able to read more or finish more in, and which ones that maybe I didn't read as much. So the first book that I finished was Cold Clay by Juno Black. Now this is a great book. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it here before. I think it was in one of my haul videos, and I really am enjoying this series. There is at least one more book that I'm planning on getting, and this is a series that I am going to be adding to my bookshelf. So I have purchased my own copy of I think the third book. So I purchased the one that I still have yet to read, and I'm going to be adding that to my bookshelf and then slowly collecting the other books. So one of the things that I love to do is after I've read a book, especially ones that I've taken from the library, is that I will read them, and then if I just love the book, I then go and purchase it. So depending, I usually try to purchase it first on thrift books because I love hardcover books, and I think I've shared that. I know I've shared that with you here on the channel before. And so I like to go to thrift books, which is a great way to get them at a little bit more of a discount, but I will also buy them sometimes brand new. And you can actually get new books on thrift books as well. So it's definitely worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description below if you haven't shopped there before. But it's one of the ways that I really like to add to my bookshelf collection after I've read a book and I just love it, especially when it's a series, because I'll read the first book from the library, and then if I love it, then I usually purchase the second book and then I'll go back and purchase the first one so I have a complete set. So if you're not familiar, Cold Clay is about this fictional town where all the animals live and work very similar to humans, but all the main characters are animals. So you have a moose that runs a coffee shop, and you have a fox that is the local news reporter. And so it's your kind of like a cozy mystery, but that one that takes place with all animals as lead characters. And it's just really enjoyable. There's a local bookshop, and it has all of the cozy mystery feels with this extra added dimension of all of the characters being animals, and I really enjoy that. And so I really couldn't recommend these books if you're a fan of cozy mysteries, if you like books that are different settings and allow your imagination just to kind of let go, then I definitely would recommend this series. Next book that I finished in August was Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I know I mentioned this previously on my channel, and I loved Coraline. I still haven't watched the movie. It is still in my list of movies to watch. I was curious to see how that compared to the book itself. I saw the trailer, which seemed like there were some differences already, but I'm excited to actually watch that. And I'm also thinking about making a Coraline either miniature, like either a room box or something like that. If you aren't familiar, I have a miniature channel here on YouTube as well, where I share, currently I'm sharing all of my dollhouse renovations. I'm renovating my childhood dollhouse, and after reading Coraline, I'm like, oh, I think I need to make a Coraline theme, whether it's a diorama or a room box or something like that. So if I do that, I'll let you know here on the channel in case you happen to be interested in that kind of thing as well. But Coraline is another one that I want to add to my bookshelf. There is a particular copy that I am waiting on that I would like because I really love the cover art, and I'm holding out before purchasing it for this particular cover art that I want, and I'll link that in the description below in case you're interested. But that's the cover art that I like, so I'm waiting to get a hold of that one. The next was The Murder on the Links. I finished that in August as well. This is by Agatha Christie, and I listened to it as an audiobook, which I really enjoyed. I think I mentioned this this in my last haul video that I had finished Agatha Christie and I was working on a new one, or the collection that I had purchased. I feel like I mentioned this recently, but Agatha Christie, new love of mine as far as reading. I'd never read any of her work before, and they're just really, really enjoyable, and I love them on audiobook. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be focusing on with hers. I listen to them when I'm here in the studio doing work, and there's just something, I don't know, I feel like I'm being transported into this other world and just thoroughly enjoy it. I also read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber in August, and this is again book 1 of a new series. I believe it's a young adult fantasy fiction, and it is just another great series. I'm going to be purchasing this one as well. I'm trying to decide, I'm trying to remember if I've already purchased the second book. I think I just purchased the second book, so when that comes in, I'll be sure to share that with you in a haul. But it's a great series. I talked about it a little bit in my last video, so I won't go into too much with it, but definitely something that I enjoyed, and I would recommend if you're somebody who likes the young adult fantasy series. You have fates and curses and magical kingdoms, and so if that's kind of something that you enjoy, you definitely want to check it out. The other book I read in August was Shady Hollow by Juno Black. So that was book 1 of the series that I mentioned where I talked about Cold Clay. Probably should have put these in order, but I know I did speak about Shady Hollow in a previous video. Again, it's just the first book in the series. They're real easy reads and enjoyable. So if it's something that you're looking to kind of keep with you to read on the go, I would recommend these for that. The other book that I finished in August is The Ogres and the Orphans. Again, I know I talked about that in a recent video, and that's by Kelly Barnhill, and just a lovely, lovely book. And I have since purchased that. It is in my bookshelf at home, and it's one that I'm hoping to read with my kids at some point this year because it's just a really lovely story. So definitely one that I would recommend, not just for kids, but for adults. I feel like has a really nice message, and you have an ogress and a town that at one time was perfect and now isn't, and just all of these amazing characters that kind of come to life, and the goodness that's at the heart of the town. So definitely something worth checking out. Okay, so that's everything that I read in August. So I know there was some repetition over what I have already shared in previous videos, but now I wanted to share with you the books that I have finished so far in September. The first one is Winter House by Ben Gutterson, and I love this series. I had it as a library book, and I didn't finish it in time, and I couldn't renew it again. I think somebody was waiting for it. So I have purchased it. I was able to get it free on my Kindle to finish it. And then I have purchased the second book, and now I've gone ahead and purchased the first book when it came available as well on Thrift Books. Just love this series. It's about an orphan who mysteriously gets invited, all expenses paid, to go and stay at this hotel for her Christmas break, and her aunt and uncle that she's living with, and not really the most ideal situation, but she's living with her aunt and uncle, and they got an all expense paid vacation for them. So she gets to go to this amazing hotel. While her aunt and uncle are on their vacation, she's here at this hotel, and she makes friends and uncovers mysteries, and it's a really great story, and it's a series. I think there's 3, I'm not quite sure, but highly recommend. Again, young adult, or actually no, I think it's a youth fiction story, but just a really enjoyable read, something along the lines of a Harry Potter to me, in that kind of magical world, and just really enjoyable, and I love the characters. Next book I read was Dear Mrs. Bird, and that is by A.J. Pierce. I loved this story. It takes place in London during World War II. It's taking place during the Blitz, and we're following a main character who has this dream of becoming a war reporter, but she ends up working for a ladies' journal. And it's just, the story was really told well, and I truly cared about the characters and their development, and there were a lot of twists and turns that things that happened, but yet overall it was just a really enjoyable read. The beginning feels very lighthearted, and even though there's a war going on, like this kind of we shall overcome mindset. There's some tragedy in it that I'll mention, so just in case you start to read the cover and you think it's only going to be happy feels, there is a little bit of a tragedy in it, but in the end it's kind of like a happily ever after type tale. So it's definitely something that I would recommend if you like any kind of historical pieces. And the last book, I just finished it. I read it in no time last night, and it is Art Matters by Neil Gaiman. It's a short book that has a lot of illustrations and quotes by Neil Gaiman, and I started off reading it and I was like, okay, it's not too bad. I liked some of the things. And then as it went on and he was talking about art and the creative process, I just really fell in love with this book. So this is another one that I'm going to be hopefully adding at some point to my bookshelf. But I would definitely recommend it if you're somebody who's creative, if you're a writer or an artist or a musician. You definitely might want to pick up a copy of this and be a little inspired by what Neil Gaiman has to say about creativity and art. So the last thing I want to share with you is my goal list for the rest of September. So I have 3 books that I would like to finish reading by the end of September. The first one is Catherine of Aragon, The True Queen, and that is by Alison Weir, I think, or Weir. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. I have started this book a while back, and it's a pretty hefty book, and so I've kind of been picking through it and reading my books from the library in order of them being due back, but I'm truly enjoying this one, and my goal is to finish this one by Sunday. One of my favorite things to do is when I want to finish a book or so many books a week, is that I will kind of calculate how many pages in each book and how much do I have to read each day. And I set a little bit of a reading goal for myself each day. I don't always hit them, but it's a nice way to kind of try to have some reading goals and to try to get at least as much reading as possible. So I should be able to finish it by Sunday, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Again, I want to add it to my bookshelf. It's the first book in a series of books about all the wives of King Henry VIII, and it's so well told, and I care so much about the characters, and it's just real interesting because I'm not overly familiar with historical royalty and the occurrences, so it does have me going and researching things a little bit to learn a little bit more about the history, but I'm just really enjoying the story in and of itself. So even if you didn't know much about the royal family and this part of history, you could still really enjoy this story, I think, just as a story in and of itself. This book a lot, and it's going to be something I'm going to be adding to my bookshelf. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and purchase the second book in the series. This way I can take my time reading and not have to worry about returning it to the library, because they're pretty hefty books, but they don't feel like heavy reads. So there's a lot of pages, but there's not a lot of, you can read through them fairly quickly, I found. So the other book, and I've just started this, so whether or not I'm going to finish it, I can't tell, but it is The Fortnight in September, and that is by R.C. Sheriff. This book, I think it was recommended by another booktuber that I was watching, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was. I need to start making notes when I get books. I tend to watch BookTube in the evenings, and then when I'm sitting there and somebody will mention a book, I pause it, and then I go over and I request it from my library, and then I go back and I finish the video. So I should make some notes so I can share with you who recommended it. But it's The Fortnight in September, and to be honest, I'm not too sure what this one's about. I just started it, and it sounds like it's just about this family that vacations in the same location every year, and what happens as part of that vacationing. So I just started it last night on my Kindle. I think I was able to get it for free as part of the Kindle Unlimited, and so far I'm enjoying it, but whether or not I continue it, if I don't love it, because I just started it, I won't finish it, but so far it's been very enjoyable, and I do love things that take place in England, and hearing it, especially when it's an English village, which is what this feels like so far. So I'll let you know how that turns out in the end, whether or not I would recommend it as a read. Last is A Study in Murder, and that is by Callie Hutton. I also started that one, and I'm really enjoying it. The characters are fabulous. It takes place in Victorian England, I believe. I'm trying to remember. I started it late last night. And the characters are... The main character is engaged, but she doesn't really know why she agreed to being engaged, because she does not have any interest in getting married. She is a feminist, and she is part of working for women's suffrage, trying to get women the vote. But her and her aunt that she lives with take part in a weekly, I think it's a weekly study group that takes place in a local bookstore, and they get together and they read murder mysteries. Interestingly enough, the main character is also a murder mystery writer, and she ends up with a mystery of her own to solve. So it's been really interesting. I'm loving the characters so far. It kind of gripped me from the beginning. So I definitely think this is one I'm going to finish, and hopefully finish by the end of September. That is my list for September. Now I am planning on taking part in Victober, which I just learned about this past week, because as I am a booktube newbie, I am just learning about all the fun things that go on here. But I am going to take place, and I have a list of books that I'm going to try to read as part of October, but I also am planning on reading in October books that are kind of Halloween-y, spooky kind of books, and I have a list of those. So I'm going to be sharing those with you next week in my video. So if you're looking for some Victober recommendations, or if you're looking for perhaps some Halloween themed books, things that are a little more on the spooky, scary side, I'll have some recommendations for that. But for now, that is what I wanted to share with you. If you've read any of these books, if you have any information to share with me about the books that I'm working on in September, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Please do comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.